ACT1. The Island and the Labyrinth. 030:00. Narrator. San Francisco. A city of lights, fog, and beauty. But 1.25 miles off its shore lies a piece of land that beauty forgot. A 22-acre rock jutting out of the freezing, shark-infested waters of the Pacific. To the tourists on the mainland, it is a silhouette in the mist. To the men who were sent there, it was the end of the world. This is Alcatraz. For nearly 30 years, this island served as the final stop for the American criminal. It was the prison for those who couldn't be held anywhere else. It was a machine designed to strip a man of his name, his hope, and his will to resist. They told the inmates, if you break the law, you go to prison. If you break the prison rules, you go to Alcatraz. But even in a place designed to be a tomb, the human spirit refuses to die. Tonight, we go inside the walls. We look at the history, the blood, and the most daring escape ever conceived by the human mind. Production note: expansion. Spend 5 minutes here describing the sound of the wind and the history of the rule of silence. Describe the metallic clang of the bars in detail. The birth of the Rock. Long before it was a federal prison, Alcatraz was a place of isolation. The indigenous Ohlone people believed the island was inhabited by evil spirits. In 1775, Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala mapped the island, naming it La Isla de los Alcatrazes, the Island of the Pelicans. By the mid-1800s, during the California Gold Rush, the U.S. government realized the island's strategic value. They turned it into a military fortress, bristling with cannons to protect the bay. But the very thing that made it a great fort made it a better prison: geography. The water surrounding Alcatraz is a death sentence. The temperature stays between 50 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. The currents are unpredictable and violent. By the time of the Civil War, the fort began holding military prisoners. In 1933, the Department of Justice took over. They didn't want a reformatory. They wanted a maximum security, minimum privilege facility. They hired James A. Johnston, the first warden. His philosophy was simple: total control. He reinforced the bars with tool-resistant steel. He installed tear gas canisters in the dining hall. He turned a rock into a fortress that the world believed was inescapable. Life in the dead zone. To understand the escape of 1962, you must first understand the life these men were escaping from. A cell in Alcatraz was 5 feet by 9 feet. Small, cramped, cold. You had a bed, a toilet, a sink, and a small table. That was your world. Silence was the primary weapon. For years, a rule of silence was enforced. Prisoners were not allowed to speak. If you spoke, you were thrown into the whole darkness. No light, no bed, just you and the stone floor for weeks. The routine: 6:30 a.m., the morning whistle. You have 20 minutes to dress and tidy your cell. 6:50 a.m., the first count. Guards move down the tiers, brass keys clinking against the bars. 7 a.m., breakfast. You have 20 minutes to eat. You take only what you can finish. Waste food, and you are punished. The isolation was mental torture. From the recreation yard, on a clear day, the prisoners could hear the sounds of life from San Francisco. They could hear people laughing, cars driving, and music playing at the yacht club. It was a constant reminder of the life they had lost. ACT2, The Architects and the Alliance. 30:01 hour 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Narrator. In January 1960, a new prisoner arrived at Alcatraz. His name was Frank Lee Morris. To the guards, he was just inmate #1441. But to the criminal underworld, he was a legend. Abandoned by his parents at a young age, Morris had spent most of his life in foster homes and correctional facilities. But he wasn't a common thug. Morris possessed an IQ of 133, placing him in the top 2% of the population. He was a master of patterns, a student of engineering, and a man with a singular obsession: freedom. He had already escaped from the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Alcatraz was supposed to be the place that finally held him. They were wrong. The Anglin brothers and the Alliance. Shortly after Morris arrived, 2 brothers were transferred to the Rock: John and Clarence Anglin. They were bank robbers from Georgia, but more importantly, they were expert swimmers. They had grown up swimming in the ice-cold waters of Lake Michigan. They were tough, loyal, and had tried to escape every prison they had ever been in. Along with another inmate named Alan West, this group formed a secret committee. Meeting in the shadows of the recreation yard and whispering through the plumbing pipes of their cells, they began to analyze the weaknesses of the fortress. They realized that the salt air of the San Francisco Bay was their greatest ally. For decades, the salty mist had been corroding the concrete of the prison walls, making it brittle. They didn't need to break the steel bars, they needed to go through the walls. The workshop in the shadows. The plan required tools, but in Alcatraz, even a spoon was a weapon. How did they do it? They stole over 50 silver spoons from the dining hall. They fashioned a makeshift drill using the motor from a broken vacuum cleaner. They stole industrial-strength glue from the prison glove shop. Their genius lay in their camouflage. They spent months chipping away at the ventilation ducts at the back of their cells. To hide their work, they created fake wall segments out of cardboard and painted them to match the concrete. When the guards walked by during the day, they saw a solid wall. But at night, behind those fake panels, the most complex prison break in history was taking shape. ACT3, the engineering of freedom. 1 hour 30 minutes and 0 seconds to 2 hours 30 minutes and 0 seconds. Narrator: the biggest obstacle wasn't the wall, it was the night count. Every hour, guards would walk the tiers, shining a flashlight into every cell to ensure the inmates were in their beds. To escape, the team needed a way to be in two places at once. This led to the creation of the most famous decoys in criminal history. Using a mixture of soap, toilet paper, and concrete dust, they sculpted 3 life-sized human heads. But they lacked realism. To fix this, they spent weeks collecting real human hair from the prison barbershop floor. They used green paint from the maintenance shop to give the skin a lifelike hue under the dim yellow cell lights. When they placed these heads on their pillows and stuffed their blankets with clothes, the illusion was perfect. From the hallway, it looked like 3 men sleeping soundly. In reality, the men were already behind the walls, working in the dark. The raincoat navy: even if they got out of the building, they still had to face the water. Swimming 1.5 miles in 50-degree water was suicide. They needed a boat. Over several months, they managed to steal or trade for over 50 standard-issue rubber raincoats. Working in a secret space above the cell block, a space the guards rarely checked, they used heat from the steam pipes to vulcanize the rubber, gluing the raincoats together to form a 14-foot inflatable raft and life vests. To inflate it, they took a small concertina, a musical instrument like an accordion, and converted it into a manual bellows. They weren't just prisoners anymore, they were marine engineers. Every seam had to be perfect. 1 leak meant death in the dark Pacific. ACT4, the escape and the eternal mystery. 2 hours 30 minutes and 0 seconds to 3 hours 0 minutes and 0 seconds. Narrator: the night was cold. A thick blanket of fog rolled over the San Francisco Bay, swallowing Alcatraz whole. This was the moment. At approximately 9:30 p.m., after the final lights out, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers made their move. They placed the dummy heads on their pillows, one last look at the men they were leaving behind. They squeezed through the holes in their cell walls and entered the utility corridor. But there was a problem. Alan West, the 4th man, couldn't get his vent open in time. The others couldn't wait. Morris and the Anglins climbed the plumbing pipes like shadows, reaching the roof. They hauled their 50-pound raincoat raft across the top of the prison, avoiding the sweep of the searchlights. They slid down a 50-foot kitchen vent pipe to the ground. They were out of the building. They were on the shore. They inflated the raft using their makeshift bellows. At roughly 10 p.m., they pushed off into the black, churning water. They vanished. The morning after. Chaos on the rock. 7:15 a.m. The morning count. A guard walks up to Frank Morris's cell. He calls his name. No response. He reaches through the bars and pokes the head. The head rolls off the pillow and hits the floor with a hollow thud. Panic. The sirens of Alcatraz scream for the first time in years. The warden is woken up. The Coast Guard is called. The FBI descends on the island. They find the holes. They find the workshop on the roof. They realize they have been outsmarted by 3 men with spoons and raincoats. One of the largest manhunts in history begins. They find a few items. A paddle, a plastic bag with personal photos belonging to the Anglins, and a deflated life vest on a nearby shore. But they find no bodies. No blood. Nothing. The legacy. Survival or death. In 1979, the FBI officially closed the case. Their conclusion: the men drowned. They argued that the currents were too strong and the water too cold. But the mystery refused to die. Why was a car stolen in Marin County that same night? Why did the Anglin family receive Christmas cards with no return address for years? And what about the letter sent to the San Francisco police in 2013, allegedly from John Anglin, claiming they all survived but he was now dying of cancer? Alcatraz closed its doors as a prison in 1963, just a year after the escape. Today, it stands as a monument to a mystery that may never be solved. Did they make it? Did they find the freedom they sacrificed everything for? Or does the Pacific Ocean hold their bones in its dark depths? We may never know for sure. But as long as the fog rolls over the bay, the legend of the three men who beat the rock will live on. Final production step. To ensure this fills 3 hours, you should aim to read approximately 130 words per minute and dedicate at least 45 minutes of the total runtime to ambient soundscapes, musical transitions, and dramatic pauses between the segments.